Hey, everybody. This is John. Welcome to Think Business. Looking forward to talking with Dr. Michael Koehler. Michael, it's great to connect with you. Affinity's medical director, board certified emergency physician, strong interest in and experience in men and women's hormonal therapy, peptide therapy, weight loss therapy. It's good to connect with you. And so, you know, I was pre-med in school for a year. I studied about 12, 13 hours a day, and I failed every single test that I took. So I knew it wasn't in the cards for me. So I always like talking to doctors, although I, couldn't make it in the field. So, but what I think, every commercial you see right now, every reel that you're scrolling, there's so much talk about peptides and weight loss, and so educate us. Let's start with the fundamentals. And you specialize in hormone therapy, peptides, and weight loss. So let's start out with just kind of the education of it. And this is, I think, something that's very applicable to many people, specifically entrepreneurs. Define each of them for us.
Sure, absolutely. And thanks again for having me on, John. I really appreciate it. You're definitely talking about a few different things, right? But all these medications, sometimes alone, sometimes in combination, can really make people healthier and just feel a lot better, So let's talk about hormones first. So Affinity Whole Health, we've been doing hormone therapy, mainly testosterone therapy in men, for over a decade. We have 2 flagship offices in Ohio. We've been doing this for a very long time. I think just talking about testosterone first, and then we can talk about the peptides and the GLP-1 medications for weight loss, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Testosterone is one of those things where it's the male hormone, right? Although females also make a lot of testosterone as well. But it's one of those things where it's kind of been misconstrued for a long time. And that's because it's been, abused for a long time, mainly in the fitness industry and the sports industry, whatever, they've been doing that. So the good news is that, here we are in 2024, mountains of data showing, hey, you know what? If you have a combination of symptoms such as low energy or fatigue, libido issues, sex drive issues, erectile dysfunction, decreased motivation, loss of muscle mass or increasing fat, those symptoms in combination could be indicative that your testosterone is low. You have testosterone deficiency. And so really, patients come to us mainly because, they're usually professionals, they're business owners, they have families, they're working very hard, and they don't have that energy, that drive that they used to. So when they come in and get their comprehensive labs checked, their hormone panels, they might be surprised that they're low, and getting their testosterone levels to optimize can really help them with their quality of life. So, hormone therapy, that's mainly what we do is testosterone therapy in men, although we also do that in women as well. That's a new thing that's come out, really coming on lately.
Yeah. Reverse engineer that, rewind that for me, for the Think community, when it comes to, and again, I'm asking because I don't know, is the decrease because it is hormonal, because it's with age as you get older, and or because of stress, mindset, worry? And if it is the latter, what are things that people can do to decrease all of that so they can be preventative in their just well-being?
Sure. And the reality is your levels are multifactorial. A lot of it is genetically predetermined. We know that and let's just talk about men in particular, but our testosterone levels peak in our late teens and our 20s. They're the highest they're ever going to be. Every year after that, your testosterone level decreases by between 1% and even 3% every year after that. So we peak early.
That's the science of it.
That's the science of it. Now, that being said, not every person has testosterone deficiency. Some people, they're really lucky. And, obviously the ways to optimize it classically are, yes, get good sleep, right? Make sure that you're exercising, do strength training, etc. Those are ways to optimize it. But kind of it becomes a chicken and the egg thing, right? So, we have patients who are doing everything right? Doing everything. When you look at, hey, how can I get my testosterone levels naturally as high as they can be? They're working out, they're sleeping, they're doing this, they're de-stressing, etc. But they still don't feel great. And they come to us and they're surprised because their levels are low, And so in that case, it's, who knows what's causing that to be low? It's just the way your body is. And, it's a lot of that is genetic. And so For those patients, you get them on a program and they feel so much better. Their livelihood increases. So yes, there are things you can do to increase your levels naturally. Even if you're doing everything correctly, though, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah, so the science can override it. I do have a question before we move on to a couple of things about sleep. There are so many, I feel like Arianna Huffington did a lot of great work and continues to, with really raising the conversation on the importance of sleep. And so can you just kind of talk on that for a minute?
Sleep's very important. It's very underappreciated, and probably the main reason why people don't get good sleep or good quality sleep. Again, it's multifactorial. Probably a lot of that has to do with just bad sleep hygiene in particular. People are staring on their phones all day, and we know, hey, if you're looking at your phone between, close to an hour before you go to bed, that's going to disrupt your sleep.
Yeah.
People are just busy in general. But yeah, getting good sleep is certainly very important for your health. And again, one of the symptoms of testosterone deficiency can be sleep disruption. You don't get as much REM sleep, that rapid eye movement sleep, the deepest sleep you get, where you get the most rest, if you have low testosterone levels. And a lot of times we get a person's testosterone levels optimized and they sleep much better.
Yeah.
It helps them.
How good is the is it the Whoop or the Whoop? I think it's called the Whoop or the Apple Watch in monitoring, or the Rings in monitoring your sleep patterns?
Quite frankly, I've never used any of them.
I haven't either. Yeah.
Really have issues, but I've heard great things about them. And again, if you're using something where it's actually monitoring your sleep, where you can get that objective data saying, hey, you know what, John, you didn't sleep well last night. You really got, you think you slept 8 hours, but you really got 5, right? Which only those things can really tell you. It'll make you concentrate harder on making that a priority in your life.
Yeah, that's key. Okay, good. That was great. I appreciate that. Okay, moving on to subject number 2. Where do you want to talk about? Weight loss.
Let's talk about the weight loss stuff first. And honestly, the weight loss medications are peptides. So peptides are just short chains of amino acids. They're not technically proteins because they're not long enough. So they're shorter than that. And they are made naturally in the body, John. I mean, there are hundreds of them. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about the GLP-1 medications first, glucagon-like peptide 1. These are those medications that you hear all over the place now, right? Semaglutide and tirzepatide. Those weight loss medications that are really working very well. Interestingly, we like I told you before, we've been doing hormone therapy for a very long time. One of our testosterone patients, this was years ago. This was about 3 years ago, before these medications were hot, reached out to us and asked us, hey, do you offer these medications? And at the time, really, no one knew about them. They were really only being used for diabetic patients. And so they asked me about it, and I started researching it, and I saw that they're doing these big clinical trials on non-diabetic patients for weight loss. We knew they were going to be the next best thing. Yeah. So we probably have more experience with these medications than many other clinics because we've been doing it for a very long time. They work very well. The way that they work is that they mimic a peptide that's made in your body called GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. It's produced in the gut. And what that does is it helps suppress your appetite directly in the brain. And it also delays the process that your stomach empties its contents. So the end result of that is that, cravings are eliminated. Your overall hunger is down. And also when you eat a meal, John, you feel fuller more quickly and for a longer period of time. So this is why patients love those medications. They just work very well for weight loss. It's all about the calorie, right? Calorie is king.
Yeah. Talk about, though, when you're off of it, how do you, when you don't have something suppressing your brain and everything that you just shared, how do you then maintain?
Sure. And so really it's a subjective thing, right? So what we tell patients, let's say that we get them on a GLP-1 program, they get to their weight loss goals, they're feeling great, they're looking great, right? They're a lot healthier now. Then the question becomes, well, do I need to be on this medication for the rest of my life? Which honestly, they're designed to be on. They're designed to be chronic medications, Sean. Or do I want to make the decision and just come off and see how it goes? And the reality is you can do both. It is hard to come off, right? Because again, you brought this up. The entire time you're on the medication, it's suppressing this up here. So when you start coming off the medication, it's a noticeable thing. You will start getting hungry again. A couple strategies that we employ to mitigate that. One is we taper the patient off the medication. So instead of just stopping them cold turkey, we have them decrease their dose, right, over time, or even spread out their doses. It's a once a week injectable. We have them spread it out to, once every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, et cetera, right? That way you're not just stopping something cold turkey. The other thing too is that, if you look at the actual data, John, so in the original clinical trials, let's just talk about semaglutide in particular. Brand name is Ozempic, right? Patients were on this medication for about a year. Half the patients were on semaglutide, half the patients were on a placebo. At the end of about a year, 90% of the patients who are on semaglutide lost on average 15% of their body weight, okay, which is a lot. We don't as a physician, we don't have medications that offer those results, okay?
Yeah.
They did a follow-up trial on those patients who are on semaglutide, right? So these are patients who stopped cold turkey, right? And a year later, they followed up on these patients to see what happened, right? And what they found was in those patients, the average amount of weight loss, remember, was 15%. Some lost more, some lost less. At the end of a year off of being off the medication, they gained back 2/3 of the weight that they had lost. So the average person lost 15%, average person gained back 10% of a year off being off the medication. That's not that bad. I see these things on social media where patients are on these medications and they stop them because their insurance stops covering or whatever. And they say that they gain back more weight than they lost. That doesn't happen. That's not something that we've seen clinically. And it's certainly possible to come off the medication and maintain your weight, but it takes a lot of concentration. It takes a lot of mental fortitude to do that.
How did the placebo group do?
Placebo, most of the patients didn't lose a significant amount of weight at all. So in this trial, the significant amount of weight they used was 5%. So a lot of the patients, they lost up to 5%. The vast majority of them didn't lose more than 5%. And in this clinical trial, remember, it wasn't just they just put them on the medication and say, let them have it. They did exercise coaching and diet coaching throughout that entire time too. So it's really, what we say is it's a lifestyle medication. You don't want to use it as just something that fixes everything for you. You want to use it as a way to supplement your health journey, right? You got to be motivated. You have to start exercising. You need to start eating right. You don't want to just use this medication because the patients who just use a medication and don't change anything about the way they do, those are the ones that are at high risk of failing if they come off.
Yeah. I like that. Sounds like a fair statement. A supplement. I heard a while ago that this type of medication was being tested with addicts because it was suppressing that. Is that true?
Yeah. So physicians who specialize in addiction medicine, they're using it. It's off label, of course, because it's only approved for obese patients and diabetic patients right now, technically. But what they're finding in these patients who have suffered from severe alcoholism, right, which is very common, unfortunately, other drug addictions, right, again, very common, they're finding that this medication helps them get off of those and stay off. And probably the reason for that, John, is because you have to think of these medications as basically they essentially take away a lot of the reward that a person gets from putting something in their mouths, from eating or drinking something. So that goes from, drinking alcohol is the same thing. Eating bad foods, it's very similar. That's kind of a way to think about them. So it's really no surprise that it's helping patients who are addicted to things.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So thank you for that. So let's talk about being preventative, right? So you deal with a lot of everything we just talked about. In your bio, it says anti-aging, but right before we went on, you said, well, I don't know if that's the right term.
Yeah.
But in all respects, how do you guide your patients to be preventative?
Sure. Well, the main thing that we know is that let's talk about just weight loss in particular, and we'll talk about hormone therapy as well. Again, good clinical trials shown on this, right? The higher your body fat is, and when I'm talking about body fat, John, we're talking about that visceral body fat. So not just the fat that's under your skin, right? Not just the fat that you can see. That fat that's around your organs, that is so inflammatory. That's what creates all these problems. It creates high blood pressure. It creates bad cholesterol. It creates diabetes, right? Because your blood sugar levels start going crazy. And also an excess amount of fat leads to a bunch of different cancers as well. The problem is that high blood pressure, diabetes, bad cholesterol, that leads to the number one killer in the world, which is cardiovascular disease, heart attacks and strokes, right? So if you're one of those people who's motivated and you're exercising, but you can't get down to that body fat that you want to, that's when these medications come in, and they have big clinical trials that have shown decreased risk of cardiovascular disease and all these other things with patients on those GLP-1 medications for weight loss, right? Yeah. Now, talking about testosterone, what they found recently is that patients who have abnormally low levels of testosterone, they're finding that those patients have increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So if you're feeling these symptoms again, and you find out, hey, your testosterone level is abnormally low, you want to get that into a nice healthy level, because again, we're finding data showing, hey, you know what? If your testosterone is abnormally low, that's not good for you either, you know?
Yeah. What about, you mentioned inflammation. I want to talk about that because that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. I go to some holistic doctor. I have a Western doctor, but I go to some holistic doctors. I have a Buddhist monk that I see that does acupuncture and cupping. And a lot of what they talk about is inflammation and how to get rid of and decrease inflammation. It's something that we can't necessarily see when we look in the mirror. And so talk a little bit about that and how people can combat that.
I think inflammation it's a very general term now. You know, it's like, what does that mean, right? So inflammation, it just means things are inflamed. But what's inflamed? Well, a lot of times we don't know. I think it's a term that's being thrown around a lot. But I will tell you, you know, we don't generally measure markers of inflammation like C-reactive peptide and cortisol. There's a lot of markers you can check in the blood, which can mean that, hey, you're inflamed, right? What we try to do is just focus on the basics. Like, what do we know that's the best for a person? Getting their sleep well, getting them more active, getting their body weight to a healthy level. Those things, if you're doing that, you're doing better than most people are. You know, that's kind of the way that I would answer that question.
Okay, good. Talk about nutrition for a minute. You know, getting people, you know, on when people come to you and you determine that X or Y is the right, you know, solution for them. Just talk about how you as you said earlier, things are supplements. How do you guide them nutritionally?
And this is one of those things where it's tough, because if you have a patient coming in and they want to change their lives around, they want to get healthier, right? They want to feel better and look better. They want to live as healthy and as long as they can be. You know, we talk about health span versus lifespan. Lifespan being just the amount of years that you live. Health span being the amount of years that you live where you're actually healthy, right? And you're not bedbound for the last 10 years of your life, right? So that's what patients want to focus on. And really what we try to do, again, in terms of diet, et cetera, I just like being very general about it. You know, telling someone, hey, you need to start doing a million different things and exercising this way. People just get burned out. You know, in general, here's what we say: keep the protein intake high, especially if you're on those weight loss GLP-1 medications, because one of the pitfalls of patients going on those medications is, we're all human. We want to get quick results. We want to lose a few pounds, make our waistline smaller. Yes, slow and steady wins the race. You never want to shock your body. Number two, you don't want to starve yourself either, because that lean muscle mass that we have, that everyone has, you want to preserve that. That is so important for your overall health, for your overall metabolism. You don't want to just lose weight and waste away to nothing. So protein intake is something we emphasize a ton, right? And a general rule of thumb, John, anytime you have a snack or a meal, make sure that most of it is protein. That's it. That's the easiest thing you can do, right? I'm not going to tell someone, hey, you need to have 1 gram per pound of body weight per protein a day. No one's going to do that. I'm not going to measure that, right?
That's hard. Yeah.
Right. Keep yourself hydrated, right, with water, and also make sure that your fiber intake is okay. Because again, you know, you don't want to get constipated, et cetera. We're all about colon health as well. In general, those are the dietary guidelines we give. I mean, I don't like giving anyone a specific diet, because there's a reason why there are hundreds of diets out there, because they're all different ways of manipulating calorie intake. And one diet can work for one person, and the next person it doesn't work at all, because it's impossible for them to adhere to. So really keeping that protein intake and that fiber intake adequate is the most important dietary information.
Right. Let me see. I'm just looking at your bio real quickly. Okay, this was great. Tell people how they can connect with you and learn more about you.
Sure. Well, we just launched a brand new website at affinityWholeHealth.com. We're pretty proud of it. It's a lot more comprehensive than what we had. We have a good frequently asked questions area there. We have, you know, if you become one of our patients, you know, they have a portal there where you can schedule your information sessions, et cetera. And so that's probably that's the easiest way to reach out to us. We make everything as easy as possible for our patients, John. You know, they reach out to us. They're set up with a dedicated patient care coordinator that's with them for their entire journey, whether it's weight loss or hormone therapy, et cetera, or both, right? You can call, you know, whatever preferred method of communication, we offer it. You can call, you can text, you can email that person. these patient care coordinators are working side by side with the providers in our clinics. I mean, they're real people and they're actually with us, right? They're not someone in another, country or like an AI person. I mean, this is a person you can reach out to whenever. So that's what I would encourage patients to do if they're interested.
Great. Thanks. Thank you. All right. Quick speed round. A book that's had a big impact on you.
Probably Peter Attia's book, Outlive. Peter Attia is a guy who was a very educated physician out of Stanford. He wrote a book called Outlive that was published a couple of years ago. And it's really about cutting edge medicine, preventative medicine, things that you're asking me, hey, you know what? Get your hormone levels in check. Make sure that your body fat is okay. You need to be eating right, especially focusing on protein. Treat cardiovascular exercise and strength training exercise as equals because they're both equally important. They're both important. If you're just doing one, that's great. You got to do both because they're both very important. I love that book, especially when it comes to this clinic.
All right. I like that. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received, Michael?
Probably from my dad, and that is find something that you just love to do and you have a passion for. Pretty simple.
I agree with that 100%. Finish the sentence. One thing everybody can do today to take control of their health is
reach out to us.
All right.
Because you never know. Again, it's a lot of kind of general symptoms, right? Fatigue, low energy, etc. If you have any of those, reach out to us. We'll set you up. We'll have you get a consultation done. We'll do a full blood work panel. We'll see if anything that we offer can really help you.
That's great. That's great. Well, I appreciate it. Michael, it's, I love this podcast. I get to have guests, from all over the globe and help people get unstuck. And I think this is an area that sometimes people are stuck in and maybe they don't know how to define it. So having guests like you can help define what that is. Think community, if Dr. Michael Koehler can help you, reach out to him via his website. What is that one more time?
AffinityWholeHealth.com.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. If you want to chat about any business coaching, feel free to reach me at JonDwoskin.com. Michael, thanks. This was great. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. Thank you.